Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our podcast series Eureka with Indian Scientists, which is sponsored by Royal Society of Chemistry. In this series, we engage in conversation with accomplished scientists as well as researchers, exploring their journeys and experiences. Through their stories, we hope to learn valuable lessons, find inspirations, and encourage ourselves to contribute positively toward the progress of our country. So today I am very delighted to have with us Professor VIshal Rai, who is a professor in the Department of Chemistry at IISER Bhopal, and his work focuses on precision engineering proteins. He's a recipient of multiple awards, including Santi Swarup Bhatnagar Award in 2024, which is one of India's highest honors in science, along with prestigious fellowship like J.C. Bose Fellowship, Swarna Jayanti Fellowship in 2020. So, Professor Rai is also a fellow of several scientific societies, including the Royal Society of Chemistry, and he is a founder of one of the startup as well, Plavel Tech Private Limited. So, Professor Rai, it's a very pleasure to have you with us today, and welcome to this podcast series.
Thanks a lot, Abhay. Thanks for having me.
So, sir, I will start from very initial question. Like, how was your early life? If I talk about your school life, what kind of student were you? Did you see yourself going into research, or did that happen gradually with time?
So, well, my school life was, I guess, it's as regular as anybody else's. I was a reasonably disciplined kid, took my studies seriously, but then at the
Okay,
same time, I was quite active in sports as well. Uh,
okay,
I guess in school days, I was quite uh, inclined towards probably going to military as one of my first options
okay,
in career. Uh, at some point, it was clear that I had to choose between sports and studies, uh, and I can't do both in the equal intensity as I would want to. So
okay.
that was also the time when I thought, okay, fine, studies is where I would probably go forward with and make my career. So things became sorted in that particular way over time. Um, what was your final question? Was I able?
Did you always see yourself going into research, or did this happen gradually?
Yeah, so you know, again during school days, I come from Uttar Pradesh, and
Okay,
in Uttar Pradesh, I do not know of many people around me while my growing years who knew about research.
okay.
Um,
Sir, I
so
am also from UP, so I can relate with you.
So now, obviously, the motivations didn't came right away. I was definitely excited about science in general because I was able to see how, in school days, I liked mathematics and physics more. And the reason why I liked it was because I could see how I can understand things around me with the help of these subjects. Chemistry was okayish, but biology is another thing that interested me, again for the same reason. And going forward, I guess it was very clear that science is something that keeps me excited, and I kept moving in that direction. So I guess whether I would take it as a career or not, that became very apparent after 6 months into my PhD. That is when I realized that I love being in lab. I really find the scientific endeavors exciting. Planning things up and testing things out, ideas, and see how things are coming up. And so I guess around 6 months into my PhD, it was very clear that I will take research as my career.
Mhm.
I was still not sure whether in academia or industry or where life would take me, but it would remain in research domain. That was very clear.
Okay, sir. So, sir, you were very active in the sports as well that time. So now you are like playing any sports or keeping sports any hobby in this busy schedule.
Well, I must say that I kept maintaining my sports connection throughout.
Okay.
Also kept changing the sports I would play.
Okay.
So, um, like any Indian kid, cricket was my main game till my early university days. But then you know how long it takes and the time commitment if you want to play at the university level and all. Uh, so that was not possible. So from there, I had to shift from athletics because it used to take less time. During
Yes.
PhD, I had to shift to swimming because
Okay.
swimming is the only thing you can do in 30 minutes, freshen up and get back to the lab in 1 hour, right?
Sure.
So I kept shifting. Now, at this stage, yeah, if I'm in Bhopal, we play badminton 5 days a week. Yeah.
Oh, nice, sir. Nice. So, sir, when I was reading about you, you have done PhD from IIT Bombay. So, how was that time, like while doing PhD, and why you choose PhD in India? Because maximum people think after master they should go abroad to do PhD. So, in your time, how you decided you should do PhD in India and from IIT Bombay, and how was that time? Like PhD is a tough time. Generally, we say.
Okay. So let me just think and
Yes,
give
sir.
you the answer that would be the most reasonable one because PhD
Yes.
has been it has been long time. Uh, so when we were doing masters, that was the time internet was just coming into India. You have to understand that the exposure that we had. So I was doing my bachelor's and master's was from Banaras in the university,
Yes.
and most of my batchmates would, you know, at that point of time, I remember a large number of them would go for MBA programs and whatnot. Uh, but I was clear that I want to stay in science, and I was able to figure it out not through internet but through my seniors. That hey, you need to qualify NET and GATE, and
Okay.
to get into the PhD programs. And here are some of the best places in the country where you can go, right? So one thing that while talking to my seniors, it was very clear was that you go for the quality of science and the lab, and not for the country. So nation and abroad, and science is
Yeah.
global that way, right? So
Yes. Sure.
I do not think anybody should ever think from the perspective of um, India or abroad perspective, right?
Okay.
So you just think about what you really want to learn as a skill sets, and then you go forward with it. So that was very clear to me at that point of time as well. So the skills I wanted to build up and the opportunities I had, I think the one that I thought would be best for me was at IT Bombay out of the other options that I had.
Yes.
So the other point, whether PhD was tough, I really never found PhD being tough, to be honest.
Okay. It's good to hear, sir.
Yeah, because to me it was fun. Same thing I would say for my postdoctoral research and even otherwise. Uh, so I really enjoyed my and cherished my time at IIT Bombay during my PhD. We used to work hard, no doubt,
Mm.
but
Yes.
not because somebody asked us to. It was just so much of fun to do that, right? Um, and there's things that I can see that some people might find at times crazy. For example, uh, at that time, the you do you run NMR?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah.
So um, now in those times, NMR didn't have the auto sampler, right?
Oh. Okay.
So you know what it means that
Yeah. Yes, sir.
you have to
But
be there to run the
yes,
sample,
sir. Yeah.
right? And multi-channel probes were not there. It meant
Okay.
that if you have to change from one nuclei to the other, or if you want to run 2D NMR, you will have to take out the
Yeah.
probe, put in a new one, right? Now, how do you do these things in office hours? You can't,
You
right?
can't. Yes.
So Friday evening, 6 p.m. to Monday morning, 9 a.m. was the best time. No disturbance. Uh,
Okay.
and I still remember that it was not just me, but we had enough group of motivated people who would fight for this slot, Friday evening to Monday morning,
Okay.
because you can schedule all your long experiments,
Yes.
and then you can finish up the whole thing, have a publication quality data ready by Monday morning,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so I guess that is how it is. I really the way I see it is that it was all real fun for me. And to be honest, now as a faculty, one thing that I miss is being in lab. Because I have to spend more
Yes.
time in office now, and that's
Yeah.
less fun than being in lab.
Yeah. Same thing my supervisor also says. He also misses lab because now so many grants and all the things he has to do. So like working in the lab, yeah, that
Yeah,
is
so more
missing.
managerial job than scientist job, right? So,
True, sir. So, sir, like, is there any person or any teacher who inspired for you to be in science, or like you were from IT, you have done masters from BHU, very good professors there. So, is there any professor who inspired you to go for science? If you
well,
say,
you know, I guess all of us have several teachers who shape our thought process
yes,
in
sir.
life.
Sure.
It goes beyond that, right? So, going into bachelor's, I still remember um, physics, mathematics, and chemistry were three of my main subjects. And physics still was something that I loved more. Uh, so switching
Okay.
from physics to chemistry was because of a few teachers. Physics teachers
Okay.
was also great, but then I had some exceptionally um motivating teachers in chemistry who uh, influenced me to move to chemistry department as my major. So that is how I shifted to chemistry, and then uh, that too was to physical chemistry, and then I switched from physical chemistry to organic chemistry.
Again.
uh, and I was still thinking that, hey, I can use physical chemistry for solving organic chemistry problems, right? So, but then all this decision of shifting was because of the teachers who were able to show me the dimensions beyond textbook. And that used to quite often happen not in the classroom. It would happen outside the classroom where we are sitting having questions and discussions and so on and so forth. And those discussions, I think, they were really helpful. And now, just imagine, right? How many teachers would have time to spend like half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours, almost every second day, uh, answering the questions coming
Yes.
from an undergraduate or postgraduate like I was at that particular time. So this is something that I won't say one teacher, but more than a few teachers were responsible for shaping my thought process, and were also the reason why my excitement into this science remained um, in the same way as it was in before.
Yes. Sir, one question or one problem generally I have seen or I have heard also. Some students are very good in academics, like graduation, masters, but when they come to PhD, they quite suffer. So they say they are not fit for PhD. They are good for some other jobs, but not for research. So how to find out like they are good for research or they are made for research, or because they have done fantastic in graduation and masters, but they are suffering in PhD. So how anyone can analyze like they are good for PhD or not?
So, means you are yourself a senior PhD student, so you would have
Yes.
realized that the way we go for classic classroom teaching
Yes,
and
sir.
the way the tricks and methods and techniques that work for securing highest CPI, uh,
Yeah. It's
that is not the exact skill set that is required for doing well in research, right?
yes,
Uh,
sir.
you have a fixed syllabus in one case. You have to, so if you have 10 topics, you read them well, solve the problems, and you would most likely be
Yes, sir.
securing good marks, right?
Yes, sir.
So it is very predetermined fixed pathway that you have to travel. Research, on the other hand, is um, pathway of uncertainty. You do not know most of the things. Well, if you know
Yes,
most
sir.
of the things, then you're probably doing something too trivial. But
Yeah.
if you're doing something interesting, then most more likely would be that you don't know what will happen.
Yes, sir.
So there's a sense of insecurity,
Yeah.
right? And quite a few people, um, they might be good in, or they might be trained well enough to venture known spaces, but not so much in unknown spaces. Now, I would not say that they are not, they can't be good for research. It's just that if they understand the mindset required, what is the difference in the mindset required to do well in any field where things are uncertain, then I guess they would be fine as well. So it's just about the mindset part. That is what I believe. Uh, but I, person to person things can be little different. Yeah.
Yes. So, sir, you have supervised many PhD students over the year, with several having graduated and many currently working with you. So, based on this experience, what is one key advice you would give to someone who is starting PhD?
Well, see, it's not just PhD. I guess it applies to everything. That uh, because quite often I have seen some students who, uh, as you pointed out, some of those as well. Um, they would not come to PhD assuming that it requires a lot of hard work, right? Um, but tell me one field where you can do well without investing hard work,
Yeah,
right?
I think no.
There are none.
Yeah.
You look into any segment, think of the easiest field that you can think of, and think of people who are doing well in those fields. They would actually be investing a lot of hard work for being there they are, right? So
Yes, sir.
that somebody has to get out of their mind that there are shortcuts to any good destination. There are none. So
Yeah.
hard work would be absolutely important. The uh, other thing that I can see, if I have to define it in one sentence, then focusing on process and not on the end product, uh,
Yes,
that
sir.
is good enough, uh, right, for
Yeah.
doing the job. So if you are focusing on the process and not on the product, then you will definitely be learning something new in the process part. You might or might not get the product.
Yeah.
Um, so normally people who would focus on the product will get disheartened when they don't get the product.
Yes, sir.
And people who focus on the process uh, and the same thing, but they would be still happy at the end of the day because they learned something new and it will keep them motivated, right?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes,
that
sir.
is more or less,
So,
these
sir,
are the few.
in the if
No, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah. Yes, sir. So if I say like in PhD, you will get more failures than your successful experiment. So in those failure experiment or whatever your hypothesis you were not getting, whatever you were expecting. So what can keep us motivated in that time? Like, okay, we should believe in process, but we don't know how much long this process will go, and at the end we will get the results or not. We don't know. So
Right.
in that time, what can keep us in that difficult time?
So, um, again, human brains are trainable in certain ways, right? So normally, that
Yeah.
is why I would never define result of any experiment as success or failure. That's point number one. Uh, I would have a hypothesis for setting up
Okay.
an experiment, and I will see what I learned from that experiment. That's all. There is no success,
Okay.
no failure.
Okay.
So
No
now,
failures.
yes, there are drawbacks. Drawback would be that when it will work like what you want to, you would
Mm-hmm.
not feel very happy simply because you are not looking at that from success failure perspective, right? But keeping things simple is better for human brain because your scientific question can then be more complex. Like think of mathematics,
Yeah.
right? If you
Yeah.
can solve four variables, you do not
Mhm.
want those four variables all coming from your mind because then you have nothing left for scientific variables. So if I
Yes.
looking into a complex question of science which has three variables, I would want my mind to be, you know, keeping things as simple as possible. I
Okay.
hope you got what I'm trying to say
Yeah.
here.
Yes.
So in that
Like there is no
situation,
successful or failures. Yes.
yeah. So normally, the way I would still conduct myself is that First, I will focus on process. Second,
Mm-hmm.
mm, I would only focus on what is there in my hand and not what is beyond my hand,
Yes.
right? So,
Yeah.
systematic planning and execution is in my hand, systematic analysis is in my hand, the outcome is not.
Yeah.
It also helps you staying unbiased. And in scientific research, it is important to be
Yes.
unbiased, right?
Yes.
Uh, Also, if you would have probably already noticed that you know undesired results or unexpected results, um,
Yes, sir.
you might not be able to understand them in the beginning,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
they would mostly be more exciting than
Yeah.
you were anticipating,
Sure,
right?
sure.
Because how do
Yeah.
you anticipate something based on known literature, right?
Yes.
And if something unanticipated happens, it means there is something more exciting and new, right?
Mhm.
Uh,
Yes, sir.
you just need to analyze it and understand it. So, and these are the things I was telling you about the mindset part. These are the things that are not often trained in academic
Yeah.
setup in schools, right? That is the
Yes, sir.
reason why many
Yes.
students who might be academically very good are they don't adopt very conveniently to the research labs.
Sure, sure.
But
Yeah.
then
We
imagine
got clear.
putting them in any situation.
Mhm.
Yeah, imagine putting them in any job where things are highly uncertain. They would face the
Mhm.
same problems they would face in the research lab. So it's not the research lab thing. It's
Yeah.
certain pathway versus uncertain situations. How do you handle these two things?
Yes. True, sir. So, sir, as researchers, we usually aim to solve problems and then publish papers, and maximum we go for patenting. But, sir, you started one startup also. So, as a academician or as a researcher who is working in academia, how was this journey from like working in the lab, publishing paper, filing patent, and then going for the end products? So, like we generally don't aim for that. If we like we think our job is to publish papers, develop some technology, and it's a job for engineers or some other than the academia who will take that technology and build a startup. Generally we think like this. So how was this journey for you, sir?
So let me think again. So is I guess it again comes from our when we started my career here at IISER Bhopal. Um,
Mhm.
at that point, we can't chemical technologies for precisely engineering proteins. We can have
Proteins.
biochemical technologies. Yeah.
Okay.
So you can use cells, you can use biochemistry, enzymes
Mhm.
for doing selective modifications. You can't use purely chemical for doing that. So at that point was to see why we can't do it. Let's understand it from physical organic chemistry perspective and
Mhm.
see if we can understand the whole basics or of how these activity parameters
Mhm.
learn that hey we can't regulate it, but we would at
Yeah.
least know why, right, and what best
Mhm.
can be achieved. Now the reason why we wanted to do it is again a translational question that it was such technologies could have been of very high value for biopharmaceuticals. Was that we wanted to so if we are doing it with isolated protein then it is for biopharma,
Mhm.
but same level we change our reaction
Mhm.
fast. A vial or microcentrifuge tube to a live cell or an animal or a human
Mhm.
body. Then
Mhm.
the research area changes, background
Mhm.
philosophy remains the same, right?
Yes, sir.
So this is exactly what we wanted to see, that can we understand the principles first, and if we are able to deconvolute it in 5, 6 years, 7 years, then we'll take it forward to live cells and animals, and hopefully one day to humans. So at this point, we are at the animal level.
Okay.
Now, uh, the the main question was that why we moved forward or how we thought of
Mhm.
moving
Yes,
forward.
sir.
We started. See, the thing is that in the very beginning, the question was still connected with the translational technological demand.
Okay.
It was something that was required for the society.
Okay.
I would be very happy if, let's say,
Mm.
a company comes to me and says, Vishal, we will take 99% of your stake,
Mm.
but we will take things to the market. We'll make sure
Yeah.
that your technologies will help society.
Yeah.
It can be translated, it will be translated, right?
Yes.
Uh, but that setup doesn't happen. It's not going to
Yeah.
practically happen, right? So we could be happy publishing papers and hope that 50 years down the line somebody will take it up and
Yeah.
translate it, or we take it forward ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so so the answer was very clear to us that we want to take it uh, for the societal benefit, and the only option was to, set up a startup company, take things forward. But one more thing that we learned because of that is
Mm.
now we constantly engage for last few years with multiple biopharma companies and other companies through our startup, right?
Okay.
Uh, and what we normally do not do in the academic lab is think about the scale of production, of
So, yeah.
process development for production. Dimensions are
Yes.
something that you would think about in the academic ecosystem. But now imagine that if you're developing the core technology and you're not paying attention to these factors, then the chances of translation of your technology also decreases, right? Because people will
Yes.
face bottleneck when they will try to translate. So,
Yes.
so that is why, now having a broader idea of this whole dimension actually also helps us to decide, okay, what should be our shortlisting criteria of which method is better,
Okay.
right? I'll give you one very simple example. As if you're doing a reaction at, let's say, your reaction, let's say, works at zero point 0.1 molar concentration, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Um, and it works a little better at zero point zero 0.01 molar,
Yes,
right?
sir. Yeah.
Now, as an academician, you might just say, okay, fine, I'm getting a little better yields. Let me shift
Feel.
it.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Right. But when you think from the process perspective, you think that, oh, if I will decrease the concentration by 10 folds, it
Mm.
means I need 10 times bigger reactor for, setting up the pilot scale production or industrial scale production. That's
Yes.
a huge cost. The cost of
Yeah.
the solvent is again
Yeah.
a huge cost, and
Yes.
sustainability becomes an issue, right?
Yes, sir.
So, so integrating from the translational side actually helps you having a broader perspective as well from the scientific management.
Okay.
I do not know if I
Uh,
answered your question or not, though.
yeah, it's but one follow-up question. What were the problems you faced while doing this startup or going from academicians to building a company? Like, what were the problems if anyone wants to translate their technology by themselves or starting a startup? So, what kind of mindset it requires? Because I think it will be difficult or it will be different, I will say, to publish a paper or to start a company. It will require a different mindset, I will say. So, what were the problems you faced while in this process?
So again, from the mindset perspective, you see,
Hmm.
if if you have the appropriate problem solving mindset that you would develop as a PhD student, uh, it's not a different mindset that is required here also. You have to solve problems,
Okay.
and you will face roadblocks, and
Mm-hmm.
you will have to figure out a way, right?
Okay.
So that remains the same, the problems change,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So when
Yeah.
we started, IISER Bhopal uh, had no incubation center, right?
Okay.
Um, Good thing was that we have very supportive administrative system. So when we proposed it,
Mm.
they worked on it right away, and then an incubation center was established within a month's time,
Okay.
right? But then obviously incubation center was as new as we were into the startup, right? So they could not help
Mm.
us. So we
Okay.
had to learn things related to finance and business. That was not the most fascinating thing for me growing
Yes, sir.
as a student, right?
Yes, sir.
So, but then again, it was required for
Mm.
doing what we are doing. So there's no option but to learn it, right? So, but it is all fine at this point. We still have a lot to grow. There are still many roadblocks. The dimension of roadblocks change, uh, and but remains the same. When it comes to publishing paper, now again, um, that there's one thing that we have been very clear, at least in my group, and I hope I'm saying for my whole group,
Yes.
because uh, we don't do research for publishing papers. Uh,
Good.
that is not how we think about it. So,
Okay.
in fact, if you'll ever open any of our paper, you'll realize
Mm.
that each paper is means if you think from the number of papers perspective, you might think that, oh, this could have been 4 or 5 papers. Why they have published all of this information in one paper?
And in one paper.
Right.
Yes.
So, uh, but one thing that we know is that each of our paper is a very good complete story, or a
Mm.
comprehensive
Yes.
enough story, not complete but comprehensive enough story. So anybody in the field who want to use it, the
Mm.
technology, they'll find sufficient information and understanding to take it forward for further execution and benefit for growth of the knowledge in the field. So that is how we look into these things.
Yes.
Um, and we really never get into the number game at all. Um,
Okay.
it again keeps
Mm.
you sane, keeps you, the questions that you were trying to ask
Yes, sir.
indirectly about mental peace and how do you
Mm.
carry forward yourself. So if you keep your priorities straight, then it
Mm.
becomes actually easier. And there will be a lot of noise around you that will
Mm.
try to deflect you from that.
Yes,
And you
sir.
have to figure out how to just keep the noise away,
Yes, sir.
right?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
At your stage, so let me ask you, because as a PhD student, do you ever feel peer pressure that, oh, that person is my batchmate and he or she has already published so many papers and I am yet to publish my first big paper or the only paper?
Yeah.
Do you feel a
Yes,
pressure?
sir. I will say honestly, yeah, we feel that pressure, but then our supervisor keeps us in the right direction. Like, don't everyone's PhD journey is totally different.
Yes,
You can't compare your journey with someone else. So he always keeps us in this direction all the time. So yeah, we feel that pressure. Like, who joined with us and he's publishing papers continuously, and sometimes we have data, but still our supervisor thinks it's not still complete story, so you have to work more.
right.
So we feel that pressure is true. Sometimes we feel demotivated also. What will happen after PhD if we don't have papers? How will I get postdoc, or how will I get a job if I don't have that many papers? But I think then the role of mentor is more important. They or they guide us in that, like, in the right direction, I would say. Ki number of papers doesn't matter. If you have one good paper, that's enough for your postdoc, and people will understand what you have done. Compared to you have 5 or 6 paper, in comparison to that paper, I think then the role of supervisor helps us. In that way, my supervisor is also focuses on more comprehensive study comparative to number of papers. So
I completely agree because just keep yourself once, if you're thinking postdoc as your next stage, then just
yeah.
keep yourself in the place of your postdoc, potential postdoc mentor. They would be looking for certain skills, how
Yeah.
comprehensive you can be, and if
Mhm.
we are looking to solve an ambitious problem, do you have the mindset of troubleshooting and do you have the perseverance to stick to the problem for long
Yeah.
enough so that there is a fair chance of solving it, right?
Yeah.
And very large number of papers actually sometimes can be counterproductive.
Yeah. Yes, sure.
uh, but one good comprehensive paper, and in fact, I have seen some of my group members, uh, even before their paper, first author paper made it,
Mm.
and just when they shared the draft of manuscript with their 1 or 2 labs that they wanted to work with,
Mm-hmm.
they were easily able to get an interview call and then selection, just even with the unpublished.
Yeah. Yes.
paper, right? So,
Yeah.
so that is how things happen in science. If you're
Okay.
looking at some of the best places, those
Mm-hmm.
places will also be looking at some of the best candidates, and
Yeah.
that doesn't get defined by the numbers. It will always be defined by the quality.
Yeah. Yes. So, sir, one question then, like when you go for academic position, that time they look for papers or how they call you for interview. If you don't have multiple papers, you have 4 5 papers only, and will they call us for interview?
If your research area is something that is really important and
Mm-hmm.
your contributions, it doesn't matter two or four or five or 10,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
if your contributions had really made a significant difference to the field, um,
Hmm.
then you will definitely get an opportunity for presentation.
Yeah. Okay.
Once you get the opportunity for presentation,
Mm-hmm.
things before that are not so important. So you realize
Okay.
that getting the opportunity for presentation, already there is a very strong
Mm.
screening. And
Yes, sir.
I must say that I'm only talking about, uh,
Mm.
you know, some of the institutions where
Yeah.
uh, uh, there's no marking system or anything, right?
Okay. Got
Uh,
it. Mm.
so many universities, they have marking
Yeah.
system,
Yeah.
numbers and
Yes, sir.
things are important, but I'm
Mm.
not talking about them.
Yes.
Uh, so IISERs, IITs, and C and
Mm.
TFR, these places,
Mm.
the same thing would apply.
Yes,
Uh,
sir.
and in this case, once you get the chance of presentation, then it
Mm.
all depends on your scientific depth,
Okay.
right? And then the discussion that happens afterwards,
Mm-hmm.
that is the opportunity for showing you how deeply you think. Do you understand the connection of your science with the rest of the ecosystem? Not just all the good things, but also where are the drawbacks, where you can make a potential contribution. And if
Mm.
that scientific maturity is in place, you have a very
Mm.
strong chance to make it through. So that is how it works, right?
Yeah.
And scientific maturity doesn't come by preparing for a month or two or three, right?
Yes, sir.
It has to be in the continuous process for a long
Mm.
time, right? So if you're engaging with the community, trying to understand the real problems,
Mm.
and seeing where you can make a significant impact, or probably create a new dimension altogether. Maybe
Mm.
if it connects to the national demands in that field, is that's even more awesome, right? So,
Yes.
so these are the things to focus on, and depending on the field and research questions that you're trying to ask, things could be slightly different from each other, but that doesn't matter.
Okay, sir. Sir, like IJELs are doing good, very good in research. We can see so many IITs, ISC. But when we say global ranking, why we still lacking in those global rankings? Even we, I think we are doing good in research. We are publishing good papers, but still, uh, I feel like we are not in top 100 in any global ranking when it comes to research. So where we are lacking?
So again, since you are a scientist, I can tell you the
Yeah.
other way.
Hmm.
So normally we should, if we want to get the right answer, we should start by asking the right question, right? So in
Yes, yes.
ranking system is the one that I would normally not pay any attention to, because the
Okay.
parameters that would be utilized for regulating the ranking system might not necessarily be focused towards scientific outcomes and the quality of the science that goes on. And I'm not saying that the ranking system guys are, you know,
Hmm.
not
Yeah,
up
yeah,
to the
I can.
mark. Means
Yes.
obviously there are limitations of how you can define scientific outcome into statistical parameters. So let's leave it to that.
Hmm.
But your question still stands valid.
Hmm.
That are we so rankings would not tell you that many of good institutions in India are actually better places for doing research in comparison to many places in US and Europe.
Hmm.
So
Yes.
that has changed in last 15, 20 years. Now,
Yes.
some of the, let's say, top 15, 20 places in India are actually
Hmm.
equivalent or better than many places in US and Europe. No
Europe.
doubt.
Yes. Yes.
Uh, Now, the second aspect is, are we still at the top? The answer is no, and there are gaps. There's no doubt
Mm.
about that as well. So the actual question is, where are the gaps
Yeah.
that if we can fill it,
Yes.
then we might be able to, start translating many solutions
Okay.
for the societal cause, for the
Mm.
economic growth, for making things better and getting high-end jobs within the country, right? All these
Yes.
things are interlinked to each other.
Yes, sir.
These are not three questions that I ask. If
Yes, sir.
you can do one of them correct, everything else will fall in place, right?
Yes.
So now, obviously, there are few things.
Mm-hmm.
The investment done in the academic research is still limited in comparison to the other developed nation, even in comparison to some of the developing nations. And I'm not talking
Yes.
about the amount of money. So let's
Yeah.
say if, you earn 100 rupees and I earn 50 rupees. You
Mm-hmm.
invest 10% of your salary into something. I invest 10% of my salary. The amount is
Mm-hmm.
different, but our
Different. Yes.
intentions are same,
Same. Yes.
right? We are giving same
Yeah.
importance for that investment.
Yes.
Now, the problem here is not just the amount. The problem here is the percentage of uh,
Yeah.
overall money
Yes.
that we have. How much of that is invested into the research dimensions and all. The other segment, obviously, is industrial growth. Uh, you would notice that most of the developed nations, the industrial engagement with the academic research is
Mm.
critical for doing the translation of academic research or technologies to market.
Okay.
And when it is translated to market, that is what leads to contribution to economy,
Okay.
right? And then this whole thing becomes circular,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So, so if you want to achieve something similar here,
Mm.
that also has to fall in place. Now, it is also true that government has been investing a lot of effort in
Yeah.
this dimension as well. So
Yes.
it's not that people have not realized it and they are
Mm-hmm.
not trying to invest a lot of effort. They have done that. But are we going at the right pace? Only time would tell. That what
Yeah.
are we able to do with this opportunity we have at our hand. But there's no doubt, I think, in anybody's mind
Mm-hmm.
that if we want to be one of the prominent economies and a developed nation, it would
Mm-hmm.
not happen unless science and technology driven intellectual property is gets connected to the economic growth, and then it becomes like a circular thing.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So, sir, you worked abroad also. You are working here. So, did you find any research cultural gap which we are having? Like as a student, I'm working here, and when you worked during postdoc, you find students there. Is there any research cultural gap we are having here?
But Abhay, you realize that you and I are working in still some of the best places in the country, right? So
Yeah, that is
if
true, sir.
if I take the example of our department or your department,
Yes,
right?
sir.
So that might not resonate with many other places in the country,
That is true.
right?
That is true, sir.
Uh,
Yeah.
but I must say that I know the culture, the research
Yeah.
culture at your institute. I know it at my institute and many other institutes as well.
Yes, sir.
One of the best places in India, again,
Mhm.
the research culture is really good. Uh, Gen Z problems obviously are there, but
Yes, sir.
then other
Yeah.
than that, the research culture, but that is there in other countries as well, and we
Mhm.
have less of that. So be aware, which is a good thing.
Okay. Okay.
So if we compare it with Europe and some of the other places,
Yes.
so I think research culture-wise, after when you once you see how things operate in rest of the world as well, I think
Mm-hmm.
research culture is fine. Research
Mm-hmm.
infrastructure and the
Okay.
ambitions that we set for ourselves, there
Mm-hmm.
we have gaps. Um,
Okay.
Now, again,
Mm.
your institution and my institution has one of the best infrastructure in the country,
Yes, sir.
right?
Sure, sure.
But
Yeah.
so just quickly tell me, do you work on materials, biomaterials?
Yeah,
or the
biomaterials we work,
biomaterials.
hydrogels. Yeah, yes.
So if
Mhm.
let's say if you want to, you have developed something super cool, and let's
Yes.
say it can be utilized as a biomaterial and can be infused into a patient body and can be used for, let's say, sustainable
Mhm.
delivery of a molecule inside the patient's body for
Yes, sir.
30 years, right?
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
do you have a facility that in next 2 years can help doing that?
I think, sir, we have our supervisor can collaborate with the hospitals. He can get us like with collaborators.
So
So I think we have facility, that kind of facility we have.
no, so that is where the gap is. So if let's say I have,
Mhm.
and now this is where you see at least ISC and IT Kanpur, two places have started
Yeah.
doing the
Yeah.
experimentation in the med school
Yes,
thing.
sir. Yes.
We will see how that goes. But
Yes, sir.
when you talk about the collaboration, I can tell you that most of the biggest deal breaker would be the collaboration part.
True, sir.
It is
Mhm.
not going to be straightforward, and that will
Yes.
be, so these are the places where many of these translational opportunities dies.
Okay.
So
Mhm.
if you have an
Yes.
ecosystem where you can
Okay.
do most of the preclinical attributes,
Okay.
and you can, you get approvals for your biomaterial for safe human usage, right?
Yes.
You do not have to learn all of that.
Yeah.
You have nodal facilities that can provide you
Mhm.
all the information required, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Um,
Yes, sir.
that would be the ecosystem that would be ideal. That is,
Okay.
and that will take a cost,
Yeah. Yes, sir.
right? So some of the best places in the world have these type of facilities.
Okay.
In India, I'm yet to see even a single place where we have that ecosystem.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yes.
even at the academy, think about it. Um, what is the most fancy equipment you have in your lab?
In my lab, I will say ITC.
IT.
Like whatever we most of the instruments we have in our lab, and rest the instruments we use from central facility or departmental facility. But whatever we need, we have
I know
in
that.
our.
But now
Yes.
think of one thing that
Hmm.
whatever you have in your lab,
Yeah.
um, and the one specifically the ones that are more prone to maintenance and breakdown, right?
Yes, sir. Mhm.
Uh, we still ask a supervisor if he can manage money for
No,
maintaining
no,
that,
we have seen, sir. Like,
right?
I think buying new instrument is more easy than maintaining or fixing the broken one. That's how
When,
the grants gives us money.
so
So yeah,
now
that. Hmm.
Now think of what is common sense. Common sense would be that if I bought an instrument, and let's say its life is 12 years,
Yeah.
and I can probably, if I maintain it well, I can make it work for 15 years or maybe a little longer, right?
Yes.
It should run 24 by 7 for all those years, right?
Yes,
Uh,
sir.
but there is no way to get maintenance money in this country.
Yes, sir. True,
And
sir.
now, even for a non-scientist, there should be common sense,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, sir. Yes,
So
sir.
you understand the
Yes,
gaps.
sir.
Gaps are
Yeah.
not only at the larger level. I gave you one example of a larger level where we were
Yes,
talking
sir.
about investments,
Yeah.
making nodal facilities,
Yes,
uh,
sir.
and then it is also at smaller levels. And these are
Yes,
the
sir.
things that are not going to be resolved unless
Mm.
the decision makers are from the scientific community.
Yes, sir. True,
You
sir.
get the point because
Yeah, yeah, I
someone
got it.
not from the scientific community would not understand the problems and pains and the loss
Mm.
that these type of
Yeah.
simple things incur,
Yes, sir.
right?
Uh, yes.
But I
So,
must also say, since you asked me from international perspective, there is no
mm,
nation without a problem. So, so it's just that you can keep contributing to the best level you can. But
okay.
if you want to think of a system where there are no problems, there are none.
Okay, sir. Now I come to my last question. Sir, we talked about like from your PhD journey and what are the problems now India is facing, what kind of generation it's coming. So, what are your expectations and hopes from the future generation who wants to do better in science and technology in India? So, what are your expectations from them?
I, uh, well, my expectations. would not be important. The important thing would be what are their expectations from themselves in the coming decade. Now, I have seen that when I started my PhD,
Mm-hmm.
some of the best places in the country still did not had a lot of resources, uh, right? That includes, let's say, if you pick up the five best institutes in the country,
Mm-hmm.
uh, there were still limitations on how much can you do in
Yes,
terms
sir.
of research, and that was because of the financial part, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were very bright people or very smart people, but
Mm-hmm.
the infrastructure and the ecosystem, financial ecosystem was not very supportive, right? Now the effort, the economic growth of the country and the effort invested from our senior generation,
Mm-hmm.
uh, that was very critical for today's scenario. You
Okay.
so
Yeah.
when we say that, oh, things have become much better in this country in last 15, 20 years, it is a
Mm-hmm.
lot of effort invested by uh, you know people of our senior generation, and also
Yes.
obviously a lot of importance and effort given by non-scientific community from the administrative point from government sides, right? So that
Yes.
also has a role to play, no doubt about that. So that in last 15 years has brought to us to this place, right? But
Yes.
you also realize that the expectations from our generation has changed,
Yes.
uh, right? So now
Yeah.
it is not good enough to just publish a few good papers, and
Yes.
those few good papers, what is defined as good has changed,
Yes, sir.
right? uh,
Yes, sir.
so now you can imagine yourself that what would be the benchmarks for the next generation, right? It
Yes.
so it has to obviously go to the next level. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I hope the increase in the quality
Mm-hmm.
and the
Yeah.
contribution to the national growth, that remains maintained, and at the same time, it becomes a responsibility for the current generation to make sure that they provide even better ecosystem to the next generation,
Yes,
so
sir.
that they can then deliver what they have full potential of, right? So that
Yes.
is what I would expect. But yeah, just one person's expectation would not change anything. It has to be a collective thing, and
Yes.
it would really matter what the next generation expects from themselves.
Yes, sir. So, uh, thank you so much, sir, for giving us time to talk to you. And it was very nice to talk to you. And it gives us like a new way of thinking, I will say, like not running for papers, not comparing your PhD with others, and what kind of like we should have that kind of plan or mind, like to solve the problems, not running for any expected results or anything. Like I learned from this talk, these are the key points. But I think more people will listen, more people will interpret in their own manner. But thank you so much, sir, for giving us this time, and thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Abhay. It was real pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much.